Welcome to Rick Rack Ruby. I'm Laura Cluvo. Today we will be making this felt Santa ornament from a vintage Vogue pattern. It's fun and easy, so let's get started. To make the felt Santa, we will start with the pattern. This is a vintage pattern, Vogue 1542, Santa Pack 4. This pattern comes with the usual instructions and the tissue paper patterns, and then it also comes with transfers. There's a set of transfers that are yellow ink on this white wax paper. It's very hard to see, and I could never get these to actually transfer, but you can cut them out and use them as patterns, and that works really well. And then there are also these transfers. It's sort of a blue ink on tissue paper, and these I can get to work even though they are about 44 years old. And what I do with these is I iron the blue ink transfers onto a piece of sticker paper. This is what the sticker paper looks like. It's Avery shipping label. So it's an 8.5 by 11 piece of solid sticker. It's just a white 8.5 by 11 sticker, blank. And you can see here what I've done is I remove the face from the transfer, and can you see? I hope you can see. Let me just hold it here. And then I just ironed it on, and it's kind of a light blue, but I can definitely see everything. So here's the beard, here's the mustache, and mittens, and everything is there except for the face. For the face, I took this little face transfer and I just ironed it right onto the felt. Here it is. So this gets ironed onto the felt, and then I can barely make out the features, but I can see them. And I interfaced my felt first with an iron-on interfacing just to provide a little bit of security from the bleed through. Anyway, then I cut out all these shapes from the sticker paper, and I cut them out from the various colors of felt. So this is the beard from white and all these little pieces. And then I cut 2 of the Santa front and back from red felt. So I'm just going to remove all these and we'll get started in a minute. Here are all the pieces peeled from the stickers, and here are my front and back. I'll set those aside. The most distinctive feature of the Santa is his mustache. This is the mustache piece. And the way that the mustache is made is by curling these long strips. I'm going to get a piece of red cardstock for the background so that you can see it, and I'm going to show you how I do that. I always do this first so that it has plenty of time to dry. I'm just going to apply some glue, and I usually do too much. Then kind of spread it flat like this. And it doesn't have to be absolutely thorough and absolutely neat, because you do have a chance to sort of adjust it when we're getting ready to actually assemble the Santa. So I'm using a bamboo skewer. The point I'm using to insert into the glue and just roll it up. I'm not concerned about it staying all the way tight, because like I say, later on I can sort of adjust that a little bit. Also, this glue will dry clear. I always say it dries clear but not invisible. So I'm not too concerned if there's a little extra, here and there. I'm not too worried about that. I just want to get those curls secured. Another thing, as you are rolling, bear in mind that when we construct the mustache, these will be tipped up like this on their sides, so they won't actually be glued like this. I hope that makes sense. Just roll it all the way up. There we go. They don't have to be perfect. In fact, it's better if they're not all identical and they're not all super tight. It's better if they're a little bit wonky, whimsical. Now, after this dries, I want you to know that I will use hot glue if I need to roll them in any further. But for now, that's going to look good, and we're going to let that dry. Now, the first thing I want to do is to embroider the face. Actually, the only thing that gets embroidered on this is the eyes. We're going to use 3 strands of black floss to embroider the eyes. I can barely see the transfer, so I'm going to go over it with my purple marker just to make sure that you can see it. I tried a couple of different colors of felt for the face, and I just kind of decided that for this demo to go with the shade that was closest to the actual pattern. But of course, you can use any color you like for the face. I did one with a color called Almond. I'll show you all of my examples at the end, including the Santa that I made way back in the 70s. It looks pretty good, well, it actually doesn't. It looks kind of sad, but considering how long it's been sitting in a box of ornaments, it looks pretty good. All right, so there are my 2 eyes. Again, it's 3 strands of black floss and not much to it. There we go. I've secured the thread in the back, and I'm going to add a smudge of glue back here just to prevent those from raveling. Now, I admit that when I was cutting out these little shapes, I decided to see if I didn't have a die that would cut something approximately the same. And I decided to go with these felt circles. I cut them with my die cutting machine, and they are a little bit bigger than the pattern, and I also cut the nose. And later on, I'll show you there are some leaves that are embellishing the hat, and I also cut those out with my die cutting machine. Now, there are a lot of layers. On the face, you have these cheeks and the nose. There's the beard. There's a mustache. And then it all gets stitched to the front. So I don't recommend using any kind of glue if you're going to stitch anything. You can glue everything. It's fine. Just glue, 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 glue. It's fine. I'm going to stitch everything because that's what I prefer. And so what I'm going to do is in layers. So I'm going to do the cheeks. The nose I will glue. I'm going to do the cheeks first. And I'm going to pin these little circles. And there is a guide. I know you can't really see this. There is a guide that shows you exactly where they go. They're kind of in from the edge a little bit, which is good because I'm going to stitch that later. And I think about like that looks good. Only the very top of the cheek is going to show. So if it's not perfect around the bottom, that's fine. So I'm going to start at the bottom and stitch around the edge of each cheek with a little baby machine blanket stitch. Here are the cheeks. I've stitched around the edges, and you can see I've left enough of a border beyond those circles that I can do the blanket stitch to attach the face. And that is next. I'm going to blanket stitch around this entire piece to join it to the front. And remember, this bottom edge won't show. The top edge won't show. There's a hat band for the top, and then there's the beard over the bottom, but there's a little bit on the sides that will show. So I'm going to try to keep it neat, and I'm going to pay a special attention to keeping those sides neat. There we go. Next, I'm going to add the black belt. The belt goes down here, and then I'll add this little buckle. I accidentally sewed it that way, and that looked fine too. But I'm going to start with this black. I'm going to blanket stitch. If you just pull the belt down to where it kind of fits, then that's probably exactly the right spot. Like this would be too high, it's coming off the edge. It's actually lower than I thought it would be. So it's about like that. But remember, the beard really does fill in a lot of space. So I'm going to thread my machine with black and add the belt. There's the belt. I only stitched the top and the bottom edges. I left the sides because later on I'm going to be sewing the front to the back, and there will be some red stitches along there. And you know, if there's black and red, sometimes it gets a little confusing. So I'm just going to wait and let the red stitches join the edges of the belt. Next is the belt buckle. And if you're thinking, wow, that's a lot of thread changes and a lot of work, it really isn't a lot of work, but you can always hand embroider. Now to me, that sounds like a lot of work. Or you can just glue everything. I'm using a 100% merino wool felt. I'm going to stitch around the inside and the outside of the belt buckle. Here's the belt buckle. Looks pretty good, not perfect, but it's going to get the job done. And next is the hat band. For the hat band, I'm going to stitch across the top and the bottom, but I'm going to start about 1/4 of an inch in and then stitch across and then stop about 1/4 of an inch before the edge. Same thing on the bottom edge. So that later on, when I'm stitching the front to the back and I'm using red thread, I can just fold this up to get it out of the way and then let it, you know, flop back over there so that I have a nice clean white hat band and I don't have a little red stitching along the edges, which would not be the end of the world, but I'm just trying to think of ways to make it look a little bit more professional. All right, here I go. White hat band, top and bottom edges. Okay, there's my hat band, and these ends are free to lift up later. The next step is, I still have my white thread, so we're going to do the cuffs over the edge of the mittens. The thumbs should face in according to the pattern. There's really no mystery to you know, to placing these. Just make sure you leave enough edge over here so that when you sew around the outside, you have room to stitch, but you can always move this out of the way, which is what I do anyway. And then I like to make sure that the cuffs are just above the belt. I want to make sure that there's enough mitten underneath the cuff that when I stitch around the cuff, I will be securing the mitten. So when I pin, I make sure that I'm pinning through the mitten as well as the cuff. Like I say, there's no real magic formula. So I'm just going to go around the rectangle of the cuff for each one of these, and I'll be right back. There are the cuffs and the mittens. They look so cute. Okay, now I'm going to add the beard. Sometimes I get the beard too low and the nose isn't right and there's too much nose showing, so I'm gonna try to get it just right, centered, and exactly in the right spot, about like that. And I'm just gonna stitch along the top edge from here to here. Again, when I'm stitching the front to the back, I'm gonna lift this out of the way so that I can get that red stitching. So it's gonna be just from here to here along the top edge, and this is gonna be free. I think I'm just going to use a smudge of glue to put the nose down first. I'm keeping the glue out of the stitch path, hopefully. That looks right. You know, I'm a pinner, I like to pin, and I'll stitch along here and here. Here, I've stitched all the way around the outside and turned all the pieces back over again, and I left the opening right here. And I'll stuff firmly all the way to the tip of the hat and all the way to the bottom, but I'm gonna leave this not super firm so that I can stitch this up, and then I'll work some stuffing into that section after it's closed. I'm using Polyfill Ultra Plush. I like this Ultra Plush. And I know you don't need to watch me stuff, but I just wanted to show you how I get started. I will use chopstick just to get that all the way to the tip of the hat. Oh, and I forgot to say, don't worry too much about if the very tippy top of the point on the hat isn't perfect, because there's a pom-pom that goes there, and that'll cover the actual point. I don't know what else to say about stuffing, except that I like to be sure that the neck is very firm, and that's about it. Let me get this going and I'll come back in a minute. I finished stuffing this, and you know, I pushed the stuffing down into the body and away from the edge, and then I kind of pinned it here to make sure that the stuffing doesn't try to sneak out. And then I'm going to see if I can't continue that little blanket stitch along there to close it up. I sewed up the side. It's not my finest work. I accidentally had my machine set so that the long bar of the stitch, instead of being on the outside, was on the inside, and then the legs were coming this way. I don't know, I just wasn't thinking. And so it's not exactly as nice as I would like it to be, but fortunately it is hidden mostly by the beard. Now, the very best part here is the mustache. This is not exactly the way the directions will tell you to do it, but I am going to gather this and make a little pleat here in the center, and then stitch it down just in the center. And then I'm going to use a hot glue gun to arrange the little curls, if that makes sense. So I've got a doubled strand of white quilting thread, this hand quilting. And what I want is to secure my thread, not exactly right at the bottom, but a little bit above the bottom, and then sort of pleat it like this. There's a pleat in the center. Here, let me see if I can show you better. There's a pleat in the center, and then the top and the bottom fold up like that. And then I'm just going to wrap this and secure it on the back. It doesn't have to be perfect. It hardly shows, the stitch hardly shows on the front. Then I'll determine where I want to place it. I want it right at the top edge of the beard there in the center. I'm gonna move these. They're gonna be moved and twisted and turned, and so it doesn't matter if it's covering absolutely all the way up over the eyes, it doesn't matter. There is a top and a bottom to the mustache. Before I stitch this to secure it, I'm gonna show you approximately what I intend to do. These little curls, the top curl is twisted so that it goes up. So that goes up like this. And then the next one is going to go down. So up, down. And then this one, you know, it doesn't really matter, kind of maybe sideways, whatever. Doesn't matter. And if they're not tight enough, like let's say this one's unrolled like this, I'm going to add a little bit of glue and just roll it up. This is all hot glue. All right, so right there at the top edge, I'm going to stitch through. See where it's coming out right there, right in the middle? And gently secure it. Maybe I'll do one more stitch. Great. Then for the third stitch, I'll go all the way through to the back. You're like, what are you doing going through to the back? Oh, and I forgot to move the stuffing out to the side there. I'll do that too. Then I'm going to do a French knot, maybe just 2 wraps, and do this, boop, to secure the thread. So there's a little knot there to secure the thread. All right, now, like I said, I'm gonna use my hot glue gun to style this mustache. So first, I think I'll add a little bit of glue to the edge of each roll and just tuck them in a little bit tighter. There we go. All right, so this one curls up. So I'm gonna add some glue to the bottom flat side right here. And as I'm doing the left and the right, I wanna do approximately the same idea, but they don't have to be completely symmetrical? They don't have to be the same. Okay, so now this one I'm gonna curl down. So this one went up, this one's going down. Little glue on the back, like that. Front, top. This one goes up, this one goes down. And this one, let's see. I think we'll let this one kind of dangle down like that. All right, so I'm gonna add some hot glue to the bottom of this one. And that bottom curl goes right like that. And this is so cute. It really gives the Santa a lot of personality. And these little folds here, let's see, here. Little folds here add a lot of dimension as well. So now I'll do the same for this side. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue to secure each coil. Just, you know, folding them in a little bit. And then this one goes up. So I'll put a little glue on the bottom of this coil, the top coil, like that. And again, I am sort of adding a little extra pleat to the straight part of the coil as well, if that makes sense. And then this one is going to go down, up, down, and right? No, this is down. Okay, so up, down, down. So I've added my hot glue to the bottom of the second coil. And then to the bottom of the third of the bottom coil. And it doesn't matter if they look different from side to side. That just adds a little bit of whimsy. All right, let me find my holly leaves and my pom-poms. I have 3 little baby pom-poms. They are 7mm pom-poms. I have 1 white pom-pom, says 1/2 inch, doesn't seem like 1/2 inch, but, and then I have 2 holly leaves that I cut from felt with my die cutter. But if you use the pattern's almost exactly this shape and size. So the holly leaves go to the hat band. Dark one first and then the light one, like that. So add a little bit of glue to the back here. I always feel like you don't really want to see my nasty glue gun, right? And then this one will go here. I like for this to be kind of free and kind of extending beyond the edge of the hat. And then I find it's easiest, since these are so small, just to hold them together in a triad like that and put the glue right in the middle and then set all 3 of them right here instead of trying to glue them individually. There we go. Then before I glue this to the top of the hat, I'm going to add a hanging loop. I have my red and white baker's twine. I'll just stitch through the top like this. Then I'm going to glue this pom-pom right at the top. I love the mustache. Now, I promised that I would show you the ones that I made back in the 70s. I tell you, the thing that failed was the glue. I used just white Elmer's glue, and after 44 years, it is very discolored and hardened. Everything is glued, except for somehow I stitched around the edge. I don't really remember exactly what my decision process was. I know that I made these on my own. These were not for the church bazaar or anything else, and I know that I just followed the instructions on the pattern, but I knew that blanket stitching by hand around each one of these pieces was not going to be for me. So this has survived. It was on my mom's tree for many years. My mom passed away and I inherited these, and they have been on my tree for probably about 15 years. But I really, I really am going to be very happy to replace this with a new version. I told you, I tried different colors of face felt, if that makes sense. Here's one, different shade, but I just preferred the pink as called for in the pattern. Also, this mustache is a little wonky. I just let it go a little random, the little curls, and I like that too. What else is different? Oh, I didn't think that I wanted to stitch around these little cheeks, so I just did the individual big stitches like the big star. And then I just realized that you only see the ends of those stitches and it looks kind of dumb, looks kind of like a mistake, so that was not the best idea. Besides that, I think they're about the same. I'm having a lot of fun with this series. It feels so nostalgic for me, like revisiting a little bit of my, I was going to say girlhood, but really I guess I was a young adult when I made these the first time. And I'm really happy to say that I have developed a few more skills, and I certainly have better equipment and better supplies than I did back then. And it's fun to recreate them with these modern techniques and a little bit higher quality materials. Thank you for watching my tutorial. If you're enjoying my videos, please like, share, and subscribe.